The new musical adventure is not just an announcement of the sale of plush toys, but also reveals us some of the things we will see in episode 3. In the second episode, we are fully shown Pomni's room, which is full of different toys and completely matches the color scheme of the character himself. And since Glitch and Gooseworks never give us spoilers for episodes that are later than the next, and in this case it's episode 3, I'm sure we'll see Gangle, Zooble, and Ragatha's room. And since we know that the third episode will be all about Zooble, let's discuss her room first. Of course, like Zooble, her room looks very colorful, and we see a lot of different chaotic patterns on the floor and on the walls, and it is likely that the ceiling is the same. And here we are, shown the chest, which is the main object of Zooble, because thanks to it, she can change all her details to absolutely any. And of course the mirror to understand how she looks. And remember that we still don't know whether Zooble is a boy or a girl, and after this leak, I am 99% sure that Zooble is a girl who, although she looks very rude and aloof, at heart she is a real lady who cares a lot about how she looks today. I think that in episode 3, we will see the maximum number of images of Zooble that will make us smile at least. Next, we'll have Gangle because her room is the location we've already been shown. But now we realize that it was just a clue that shows the true essence of Gangle and that her real face is a mask of sadness, while the joyful mask makes her happy, and she stated it directly in the musical adventure and urged Jax not to touch or break her anymore. And if we look in detail, Gangle's room is very similar to Pomni's room because their beds are almost identical. But only Gangle has a different color scheme, and we can see that her room is the most stylish of all and meets modern trends. What we can't say about Ragatha's room, which is more like an echo of the 80s. It's more relaxed than Gangle's, but at the same time less colorful than Zooble's and Pomni's. And in addition to a huge toy chest, we see a pianino on which Ragatha can probably play in the evening, and a huge open closet with various inventory. A lot of books, which is a reference to Ragatha herself because she is a reference to the famous character Raggedy Ann from the Johnny Gruelle series of books. Also, Ragatha herself is a toy that was embroidered out of many threads, and this is also referenced by the creators by adding a ball of thread and spokes that Ragatha can use to repair herself in case of a bad adventure. But what is more important is one of the gloinks that were the main characters of the adventure in the pilot episode. Perhaps in the toy chest are hidden not toys at all in some NPCs from previous adventures, which in general can be quite good characters if you find an approach to them, or Ragatha just collects the most accessible NPCs for his personal collection. And of course, everyone remembers the funeral scene of Kaufmo and the rascue in which his image was placed, and I have a theory that Ragatha was the founder of this so-called tradition in which they memorialize the memory of a character who is no longer present in the digital circus. We were also shown the rooms of Kinger and Jax, and if with Kinger everything is clear enough and it's just a reference to the pilot episode and his fortress, we get to see the rooms of all the characters except one, and that one is Jax. And lately, more and more fans believe in the fact that Jax is an NPC who at one point got into the digital circus and went unnoticed by Caine. And the fact that there is a picture on the door of his room, but the room itself is not shown to us, raises more and more questions. Perhaps Ragatha once brought him to the digital circus in the hope that he would change, and as we realize, she was wrong. But whether Jax is actually an NPC we'll talk about later, because in the musical adventure we saw Gumigoo again, so is there a chance to meet him again in the future? Also, Pomni and Gumigoo felt a special connection, and from what we saw in the pilot episode where Pomni clearly stood out from the rest with her skills, it's likely that her power is far greater than any other character in the digital circus. Apart from Caine, of course. And I think that this is a storyline that the creators are going to develop and not abandon. So it's likely that if Caine can move characters, heal them, or open portals to other dimensions, then Pomni will have that power. But why Caine did not return all abstracted to normal life in the circus and sent everyone to the basement if in theory he can heal even a fully abstracted character? I think it's because he can't allow the digital circus to overpopulate, because even the current cast is hard to control, and what happens if there are 2 times more of them? But Pomni thinks differently and she would like to return all of them. But I think that her power is not enough for that. But she could return her new friend Gumigoo. And here, we already have doubts about what really happens in the digital circus with NPCs, and whether all the inhabitants of the digital circus are real people. Back to the scene where Caine destroyed the alligator, and we see that our administrator is very nervous, which seems strange to me because in most cases Caine behaves very calm and balanced. Therefore, I have a theory that in fact something like this has already happened many times, and other characters also brought NPCs to the digital circus tent. So there is a possibility that someone from the already living is not a person but an NPC, and the most obvious options are Zooble and Jax. Jax always behaves very strangely and aloof from the others, and as we have learned, he is not shy to openly mock the others, and also always refuses some touching events that can bring all the other inhabitants of the digital circus together. And the most obvious example is the funeral of Kaufmo. What if someone from the old staff of the digital circus took Jax in, and because Caine didn't think it was possible at the time and probably kept an eye on all the residents and their numbers, Jax managed to avoid Gumigoo's fate. And as a result, our rabbit successfully survived and stayed in the digital circus as a real human being. Caine at one time could have easily destroyed Jax as well as Gumigoo, but I have a few theories as to why that didn't happen. First of all, Caine is not sure who is a living person and who is an NPC, and if in the pilot episode Caine said that he has no control over the minds of living people, that is, he can't kill them or make them do anything, but he is able to remove someone from the game and thus end their suffering and return them to the real world. And this is what the digital circus system itself does not want, and it is most likely forbidden. Since Caine is an artificial intelligence that is constantly learning, it is likely that he has simply learned from his previous mistakes and is now more attentive to those who return from the next adventure. Jax, on the other hand, is very unemotional when it comes to anything good, and I'd say it makes him angry when things are going well and nothing threatens the others. While if something terrible happens, like meeting Fudge Monster or chasing alligators, Jax goes crazy and his excitement is unstoppable. And it makes me think that Jax is an NPC that Caine created a long time ago for an adventure in which the rest of the characters had a very hard time. Because if all of the characters who were there then were as crazy as Jax, it would be unbearable. And if you compare Jax and Gumigoo, you can see that even 100% NPC Gumigoo is much more emotional than Jax. And this confirms that Caine is constantly learning and constantly creating more complex and complicated characters. Also, no one can deny that Caine decided to keep Jax on purpose, because if he is a game character who is obliged to work on making the living people have fun, then his retention in the digital circus is perceived by the administrator as a gesture of goodwill. But as we can see, the maximum level of Jax does not allow him to train any other feelings except humiliation, anger, and rare sadness. And all of this makes Jax one of the most unwanted characters in digital circus, who not only makes other characters' lives worse, but literally makes them suffer. And against this backdrop, I have a theory that Jax doesn't behave this way on purpose. And even if he doesn't want to behave so rudely, he just can't do anything about it, because Caine programmed him to do so, and he genuinely believes he's doing good for others,